What if being rich became a punishment for you? That's exactly what happened to the hero of our story, Masaru. Being the son of a billionaire, he was constantly mocked by his classmates every day. Despite his immense wealth, he studied in a regular public school like any other kid. But that wasn't all because of his short height. Everyone called him Little Tea Seller as a joke. However, what they didn't know was that behind his small frame, there was a hidden master, one with scars all over his body. Every day, sinister forces, armed men, and strange puppets searched for him with only one goal: his wealth and inheritance. Our story begins with a spoiled yet fascinating rich kid, Masaru Saiga, who was about to become the sole heir of the Saiga family's massive fortune. The Saiga family owned Japan's biggest tank manufacturing company. At that moment, Masaru was enjoying a local circus show, completely thrilled like any other child, eager to see the performers' incredible acts. But suddenly, everything went terribly wrong. The performance spiraled out of control, and the puppets on stage started attacking the audience. Chaos erupted. Using his small size to his advantage, Masaru quickly slipped away from the circus. Meanwhile, we catch a glimpse of a stunning girl with sharp, piercing eyes, getting dressed backstage for her own circus act. She was moments away from her performance. At the same time, a part-time mascot named Narumi Kato, dressed in a giant teddy bear costume, was trying to attract as many tourists as possible to buy circus tickets. Just then, our hero, Masaru, arrived in the city and ran straight into Narumi, desperately pleading, "Please, take me inside the circus. Please." But Narumi was taken aback. The boy looked too clean, with a stylish haircut and expensive designer clothes that regular people couldn't even dream of affording. He looked like a rich kid who had gotten lost from his wealthy parents. Annoyed by Masaru's persistence, Narumi scoffed, "Get lost, spoiled brat of a rich father." Realizing that the teddy bear wasn't going to help, Masaru turned away, searching for someone else. Meanwhile, Narumi started regretting his behavior. Just because the boy came from a rich family didn't mean he deserved to be treated that way. As Masaru walked away, Narumi tried to call him back, but before he could, something strange happened. A sudden, terrifying attack gripped him. It was a brutal panic attack, suffocating him, making his muscles freeze. There was only one way out of this: he had to make someone laugh. That was the only way his body could reset. Gasping for air, Narumi dragged himself onto the crowded city street and started dancing wildly, absurdly, like a man possessed. Arms flailing, legs kicking, moving in the most ridiculous way possible, hoping desperately that someone, anyone, would laugh. But minutes passed, and no one even cracked a smile. He was on the verge of collapsing, suffocating, drowning in his own body until Masaru turned back. And then, he laughed. A loud, unexpected burst of laughter. In that instant, Narumi snapped back from the brink of death. Gasping, he caught his breath, feeling the weight lift off his chest. He turned to Masaru, managing a weak but grateful, "Thank you." But Masaru, as indifferent as ever, simply shrugged and continued on his way. He didn't care. Just as he was about to disappear into the crowd, 3 tall, thin men dressed in black suits appeared out of nowhere, blocking his path. They weren't just any men, they were connected to the infamous John Baniga group. At first glance, they looked normal. But they weren't. They were puppets. Narumi hesitated, watching from a distance. "He saved my life," he thought. "Should I step in?" Then, shaking his head, he muttered to himself, "Nah, not my problem. Rich kid drama. No need to get involved." He turned to leave. But something inside him, something deep, something human, refused to let him walk away. His inner hero stirred. Gritting his teeth, Narumi made his decision. He couldn't just stand by and do nothing. With a sudden burst of speed, he launched himself at the black-suited figures, unleashing his deadly kung fu skills. Punches, kicks, swift movements, he fought with everything he had, determined to free Masaru. But no matter how hard he struck, the men barely reacted. And then, before his eyes, they did something impossible. Silently, without a word, they stood back up. Narumi's breath hitched. He had no idea that these weren't humans. They were something else entirely. Puppets. And they weren't done yet. Determined to put an end to them for good, Narumi decided to crash their entire system. Without hesitation, he snapped one puppet's neck and yanked the arm clean off another. But even after this brutal attack, the lifeless eyes of the puppets flickered, as if trying to reboot. Realizing they were running out of time, Narumi grabbed Masaru and bolted. The puppets, relentless and silent, pursued them through the crowded streets. They ran until they reached the nearest train station, where they managed to hop onto a moving train, hoping to escape to another part of the city. Inside the train, drenched in sweat and exhausted from running, Narumi could no longer bear the heat. Frustrated, he finally yanked off the massive teddy bear head, revealing his real face. The moment Masaru saw him, he recoiled in exaggerated horror. Aio. Ugh. Gross. Tui. What did I just see? He shrieked, dramatically covering his eyes. You look even scarier without the mask. Narumi glared at him. Oh, so I saved your life, and now you insult me? Great. Just great. Ignoring Masaru's over-the-top reaction, Narumi finally asked, why were those men after you? Before Masaru could answer, Narumi suddenly froze, his body locking up as another panic attack took hold. His fingers curled tightly around Masaru's collar as he gasped, laugh. Laugh now. Baffled, Masaru watched as Narumi's face twisted in desperation. Then, unable to help himself, he burst out laughing again at the absurdity of the situation. Within seconds, Narumi snapped back to normal. He sighed in relief. Phew. That was close. With things finally settling down, Masaru decided to formally introduce himself. I am Masaru Saiga, he declared proudly. The future owner of Saiga Group Limited, one of Japan's biggest companies. We dominate IT, tech, and the automobile industry across the country. Narumi raised an eyebrow. Yet? And? Masaru's expression darkened. Ever since my father died, those puppets have been following me. Narumi's mind started connecting the dots. These eerie, human-like puppets weren't just some random assassins, they were after Masaru's wealth. And how exactly did your father die? Narumi asked. Masaru hesitated, then finally spoke. It was an accident. A car crash on the highway. He lost control, and the vehicle flipped over. His voice wavered. But when the wreckage was inspected, they found something strange. The crash wasn't caused by normal tire failure. He gulped. There was something inside the tires. Something that looked like a puppet's mechanism. Narumi's expression turned serious. Wait, you're telling me your father's accident was caused by one of them? Masaru nodded. Then, as if recalling a buried memory, he continued, when I was a kid, my grandfather used to tell me stories. He said every man in the Saiga family had a fascination with creating their own Karakuri dolls. Karakuri dolls? Narumi asked. Masaru nodded. Yes. Mechanical puppets crafted with intricate clockwork mechanisms. They moved like real people, performing incredible feats. Back then, the Saiga company wasn't a tech giant. It was just a small puppet-making business, selling special dolls to circuses. A chill ran down Narumi's spine. Wait a second, are you saying, your company's entire foundation was built on making puppets? Masaru's gaze hardened. Yes. And now, those very puppets are coming after me. Masaru continued, my grandfather also told me, if my father ever died, all the company's wealth would automatically pass to me. He frowned, still puzzled. But I never really understood what he was trying to say back then. Then, with a serious expression, he added, before he passed away, he left one final instruction: if that day ever comes, take the special suitcase and go straight to the nearest circus. Find a man named Shirogane and give it to him. Narumi blinked. Shirogane? Who the hell is that? Masaru shook his head. I have no idea. I just know he's supposed to be in some circus. That's why I was trying so hard to get inside. Narumi sighed, rubbing his temples. So that's why you ran into the circus like a lunatic. He then had a more logical thought. Listen, wouldn't it be better to just call the police? But before they could even consider that option. Crash! Another puppet assassin barged into the train car. With unnatural precision, it blocked every one of Narumi's attacks. Then, with terrifying strength, it grabbed him and slammed him into the metal wall, nearly knocking the wind out of him. Narumi groaned, recognizing the sheer insanity of their power. These weren't just machines, they were monsters. But even then, he refused to back down. Tch. He pushed himself up, standing between Masaru and the puppet. Like hell, I'm letting some creepy wind-up toy kill us today. At that moment outside the train, another puppet, dressed in a black suit, stepped onto the tracks. The train conductor, mistaking it for a real person, panicked and slammed the emergency brakes. But it was too late. The puppet wasn't human, it was a clockwork doll in the shape of a girl. And when the train hit it, boom! The impact shattered the puppet into 1,000 metal fragments, but the train derailed completely. The violent crash sent Masaru flying, terror gripping him as he screamed. Ah! By the time the train finally skidded to a halt, Masaru was curled up, trembling. Tears welled in his eyes. For the first time in his spoiled, sheltered life, he was truly scared. This is too much. He sobbed. I don't want to die. But before he could fully break down, smack! Narumi slapped him across the face. Get it together, kid. He snapped. You have more money than Ambani, and you're crying like a helpless baby. If you want these dumbass dolls to wipe out your entire bloodline, then fine. Keep sobbing like a little prince. Asterisk. Masaru flinched. Narumi's words stung. But deep down, he knew he was right. Before he could respond, Narumi made a split-second decision. He grabbed one of the puppet assassins, yanked it with all his strength, and jumped out of the train window straight into the wreckage outside. As Narumi vanished into the chaos, Masaru stumbled to his feet. His legs shook as he stepped out of the train wreck, dust and smoke filling the air. And then, thump! A shadow loomed over him. Another puppet. This one was different. Taller. Thinner. And much more terrifying. Its empty, hollow eyes stared down at him. Masaru's body screamed at him to run. But then Narumi's words echoed in his head. Be strong. Everything depends on you now. His fists clenched. He couldn't run forever. Masaru took a deep breath, his heart pounding in his chest. No more running. Determined, he grabbed the nearest rock, a hefty one, and hurled it at the puppet with all his strength. Thunk. The rock bounced right off. Not even a scratch. Masaru's stomach dropped. Oh crap! Just then, something caught his eye, the flashing neon lights of a nearby circus tent. The train had crashed right next to another circus. Hope sparked in his chest. He shouted at the top of his lungs. Shirogane. For a second, nothing happened. Then bzzzt. The circus lights flickered on. A spotlight snapped to life, illuminating the entrance of the tent. And there she was. The same breathtaking woman from before, the one who had been preparing for a performance in the opening scene. Only now, she wasn't just a performer. She was Shirogane. Her piercing eyes locked onto Masaru. Without hesitation, she leaped into action, flipping through the air like an Olympic gymnast. In an instant, she landed between him and the advancing puppet. Her voice was calm but commanding. "Master." Mazer's eyes widened. What did she just call me? But before he could even process it, Shirogane dropped into a defensive stance. "I will protect my master." She reached for something. The heavy briefcase Mazer had been carrying. The one his grandfather had told him never to lose. With a swift motion, she unlatched it. And from inside, a puppet emerged. Not just any puppet. A masterpiece. With sleek, polished joints and a hauntingly elegant design, it looked like something out of legend. Shirogane whispered its name. Arlequin. And then, the battle began. Arlequin moved with inhuman speed, slicing through the black-clad puppets like they were nothing more than paper. One after another, they fell collapsing in heaps of broken wood and shattered gears. Mazer could barely believe his eyes. This is insane. When the dust settled, Shirogane turned to him and gently placed a hand on his shoulder. "Are you hurt, master?" Mazer's mind was spinning. "Who are you? And how are you controlling that thing?" Shirogane's gaze softened. "When I was a child, my parents worked as servants in the Saga family's French estate," she explained. "Your father once asked me for a promise one I could never break." She took a deep breath. "If anything ever happens to my son, you must protect him. Swear it to me." Mazer's heart clenched. So my father planned for this, even back then? Meanwhile, not too far away, Narumi groaned, pushing himself off the ground after delivering a brutal Osaka-style power slam to yet another puppet. Bruised, battered, but still standing. He turned, expecting to see Mazer still panicking like a lost rich kid. Instead, his eyes landed on her. Shirogane. And to his horror she was holding Mazer in a tight embrace, as if she were squeezing the very life out of him. Narumi's jaw dropped. What the hell? Since when did this brat have women clinging to him like he's some kind of rom-com protagonist? Mazer, catching sight of Narumi, called out excitedly, "This is her. She's the one I was looking for." Narumi just groaned. "Great. More weirdness. Just what I needed." Narumi was just about to speak when... Wham! Shirogane's sharp eyes narrowed. Something about him seemed off. Is he another enemy? Without hesitation, she commanded Arlequin to attack.